Hello everyone, my name is Brad and welcome to Mediocre Models. In this video I'm going to show you how I would paint British commandos using contrast paints. I'll use these two as a demonstration. I've got one with the beret and one with their beanie. And as you can see I have some already painted up. These are my sort of test models and beginner for my commando army. The models themselves are undercoated in corax white, and for contrast paints I have my British uniform mixture, which is 2 parts skeleton horde to 1 part wildwood. Then I have skeleton horde, militarum green, orc flesh, snakebite leather, Gorgruntofer, wildwood, plaguebearer flesh, Guilliman flesh, and black Templar for the contrast paints. And then I have leadbelcher for any metallic areas, and then agrax earthshade and nuln oil for shades at the end. So I'll get set up for the first paint and then we can begin. So the first colour I'll be using will be my British uniform mixture, which is 2 parts skeleton horde to 1 part wildwood. And using this mixture it'll simply go into his pants and his jacket. As you can see, it's gives a nice sort of mustard brown look to the uniform. If you can, try to avoid getting it onto sort of any parts of their webbing and stuff like that. It'll just make cleanup a bit easier, but if you do get it on, it's no big worries. You can just go through the corax white and touch it up. So I will go through and I will continue on and finish this guy and the other guy, and then once that's dry, continue on with the next colours. Now with the British uniform mixture all dry, and I've gone around and cleaned up the rest of the model with corax white, the next colour I'll move on to will be skeleton horde, and I will use this to paint in his spare brain gun pouches at the front, as well as the bit of his belt that you can see, and these straps that go over his shoulders. If any of them are wearing the beanies, I'll put it over that as well, and I'll also put it over any of the sort of rope or any other sort of the canvas bags for their Bergen backpacks. I'll do the same across both models. Another area to also put it will be the gaiters as well. So I'll finish him off and then the other guy, and then once that's dry we can move on to the next colour. Now that the skeleton horde is dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be militarum green. And using this I will paint this little strap that's at the front here. As well as his bag just here, the canvas cover for the entrenching tool, and his backpack as well. Just be careful when working around the ropes and that. And that'll be the same across both models. So I'll continue on and finish this off, and then once that's all dry, I'll come on and move on to the next colour. While the militarum green is still drying, the next colour I'll move on to will be Orc Flesh, and I'll use this colour to paint in the beret. Simply just go around the sides. Try and get underneath. and just across the top. That's it for the Orc Flesh, so I'll let that dry and then we can move on to the next colour. Now that the Melatonin Green is all dry, as well as the Orc Flesh, the next colour I'll move on to will be Snakebite Leather, and I'll use this to paint in any wooden areas on the weapons. So for the rifles it'll be the main body of the rifle, as well as any of their water canteens on the side just here. So I'll continue on and I'll finish these two and let that dry, and then once that's all dry we'll move on to the next colour. Now that the Snakebite Leather is dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Gorgruntofer, and I will use this to paint in any of the leather straps on the weapons. I'll do him, and then once that's dry we'll move on to the next colour. Now that the Gorgruntofer is dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Wildwood, and I'll use this to paint in any of the entrenching tools if you can see them. The way the Bergen backpacks are placed, they're pretty covered up, but there's a little bit showing on some of them. And I'll also paint the wooden areas on their Bergen backpacks if they have them. I know you can put I think like a pickaxe and that on as well. And be careful when putting this on, as it can go over the other colours quite easily. So that's it for the Wildwood. So I'll let that dry and then we can move on to the next colour. With the Wildwood dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Plaguebearer Flesh, and I'll use this to go over any of the sort of all the areas I went over with Skeleton Horde, and that'll just give it that nice sort of faded green khaki colour, and it'll also help it make it stand out a little bit from the uniform. I won't go over their ropes, but I will go over his little beanie. As well as their gaiters. Once I've finished applying this to him, I'll go through with the corax white and fix up their skin, so on their hands and face, and then we can move on to the final couple of colours. Now with the Plaguebearer Flesh all dry and the skin all fixed up with corax white, and that's all dry now, the next colour I'll move on to will be Guilliman Flesh, and this will be for all their flesh. So it'll be for his face and his hands. So I'll apply this to both models, and then once that's all dry we can move on to the next colour. Now that the Guilliman Flesh is basically all fully dry now, the last contrast paint I'll move on to will be Black Templar, and using this I will paint in the thin band that's on his beret. If you don't want to sort of struggle and paint it in at this step here, you can paint it as one of the first steps, and then when you go through the corax white you can fix up his skin and his hair and his beret and just leave the thin black line there, and then you don't have to worry about getting it on their skin or on the beret or anything like that when it's already finished. Other areas I'll also paint using the Black Templar will be his boots, And another thing you can also do with the commandos, you can give them sort of camouflage stripes on their faces. And you can sort of do it a couple of different ways. You can go sort of horizontal or sort of diagonal lines straight across their face like that, or you can do some that way and some that way, or there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. Basically you just get it and you just lightly drag it along. There you go, just do it like that, and then this guy can demonstrate another way to do it, or a different way. So, you can just do some like that, and some like that. Just to make it a bit different. But I'll continue on and I'll finish off their boots, and then once that's all done we can move on to the final couple of colours. While the black Templar is still drying a little bit, the next colour I'll move on to will be leadbelcher, and this will be for all the metallic areas on the model. So there'll be these little clips on the front, I'll use this belt buckle, and any of the clips on the backpack. Just on his webbing, and I'll also paint in any metallic areas on the weapon as well. So I'll continue on and paint both of them up. Then once that's all dry, we can move on to the washes. Now with the leadbelcher all dry, the first shade I'll move on to will be nuln oil. And this will be a shade all over the metallic areas. So if you painted the weapons like I have, it'll just be all over that. But if not, it'll just be all over the other little metallic areas, so all these little clips and belt buckles and everything like that. And then once that shade's all done, we can move on to the final shade of agrax earthshade, which will just be a all over wash. So I'll finish these guys off and let it all dry, and then we'll come back once it's all dry and we can do the final shade. Now that the nuln oil is all dry, I'll move on to the final shade of agrax earthshade, and this will just be an all over wash over the entire model. If you've painted the weapons up like I have, be careful and try to avoid any of the major metallic areas. And while putting the shade on, just try to avoid any major pooling or anything like that. Just go all over the model. This will just really help darken it down a bit, pull all the colours together, and make them all nice and dirty, and give them that good war-torn look to them. He's out there behind enemy lines. So I'll do the same thing to him, and then once they're both dry, we'll come back and take one final look at them. The agrax earthshade wash is now basically fully dry, and this is what they look like now. As you can see, that wash has sort of really dulled down the colours and helped tie them all in together. This is the other one. So yeah, that's how they look, and that's how I'd paint up my British commandos. So I've got basically one full squad done now. I just need to finish off some other armies, and then eventually I'll get round to doing them. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope that helps you out if you're looking to paint them this way. If you have any suggestions for any other videos or things you'd like to see, just leave a comment and let me know. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.